Now, the last two things I wanted to talk about before we move on to observing our patients. So one is psychological flexibility. Psychological flexibility has the closest correlation to good mental wellness out of any other metric that I've come across. Psychological flexibility is not just being the observer with our torch, it's deciding where we want that torch to shine. We can shine it on what is causing us stress. Once we've resolved that, we can then shine that light and we can move on to something else, rather than our mind dragging the observing light, dragging our conscious light where we want to take it. So that can be practiced, literally just how you just practice now. You can just that was more of a meditation because we're trying to focus our mind, but you can turn it into a mindfulness exercise where you're literally just observing whatever pops up into your mind, and you're observing it like you just observe a car passing you on a street, and it's gone. Oh, and then another car comes up or another thought comes up. Oh, you observe it. You can show compassion to it if you want, but you create that. But you're creating that distance with your observation, and then it goes. And that can be something quite nice to do in the evening or even in the morning. I prefer to spend 20 to 30 minutes in the morning just meditating, just to get my mind where I want it, and then I start the day. And another interesting thing that I found from the SAS, so the UK Special Forces, is that they realise in their training that it's not the pain or the distress that gets to them, it's the accumulation of it. Oh my God, this has been hard for hours now. When's it going to stop? When's it going to stop? So you're fixating on what has happened before and when's it going to stop in the future. And the more you can ground yourself in the present, ground yourself in that peace within you, ground yourself as the observer, that it's much easier to deal with stressful situations. So observing our patients. So like I said, we have the individual. The individual is, say, the observer, because the observer is our most constant state. We then have the ego, which is how you perceive yourself, your job, your reputation, what you think you have as a human being. And then we have our defense mechanisms, which protect that ego. So that's more of like a psychodynamic framework. So when we're observing our patients and when we're observing the individuals in front of us, we can apply that same meditation, that same psychosomatic, so trying to use our bodies to calm the situation, calm ourselves down, use our breath to calm ourselves, relax our shoulders, and observe patients who might be coming in quite distressed ways. I'll give you an example. And this is just how our defense mechanisms can bleed into each other. I had a patient recently who unfortunately lost his wife. Or his wife was diagnosed as being terminally ill. He comes in with hip pain, doesn't know why his hip pain started or when it started. His hip pain, after a little bit of inquiry, started more or less at the same time that his wife was diagnosed as being terminally ill. One, his grief or his distress can create a pain response because it's another defense mechanism, but also, once again, him not walking as much of his wife because his wife is sick. That then led to more atrophy, muscle wastage, increased his pain. So when we're observing our patients, we want to question what is going on within them. What arguments that might they have had? Why are they so distressed? And you don't have to make any snap judgments, but we just want to observe that they're human beings, they're going through their own thing, and it has absolutely no relationship to us or what we are, because we are just figures within their mind. Just as they are in the audience, that we are a character who is on their stage. A lot of individuals find it very difficult to separate themselves from the drama which is going on in the stage and then place themselves in the audience. So, and what you can do is also just think about, and this is just as a mental exercise, on a day-to-day basis, when you're walking down the high street and when you're listening to your co-workers, think about what kind of things they are, what kind of vulnerabilities they're expressing. So for example, especially if you walk down Gravesend High Street, Gravesend's got a very large wealth divide, and there's a lot of people who are extremely stressed in Gravesend. In fact, living in, say, an area where you have a huge wealth divide is if you're poor, it's much more stressful than living in an environment where there isn't as much of a divide and everyone's on a living playing field, on a level playing field, right? Think about how many times you hear about someone being financially stressed. Someone saying that they didn't sleep at all that night. Someone saying that their friend knows someone who did something bad about this person, or them talking about an upheaval in their social circles. A lot of the time, as human beings, we talk about our perceived vulnerabilities. Now, like I said, what we want to do is make sure that we're observing those individuals. Try to observe them with compassion. We're all distant relatives here. We all came from the same group or the same area of Africa about 300,000 years ago. You wind that back and we're related to all the other mammals and trees on the planet. We're all distant relatives here. So trying to observe this individual with compassion and trying to observe them with understanding, knowing it has absolutely no reflection